Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. I feel like this pistol is slept on, honestly. It's got great ergonomics, great features, and it's got a track record of reliability that pretty much equals Glock. Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Sawtooth Tactical, and this is the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 M2.0. Now this gun has been out for a while, but I think that it is criminally underrated. I've had this longer than any of the other firearms that I currently own. It's not the first gun I ever got, but it's the one that I've owned the longest out of the ones that I currently own. So I've had a lot of time on this. I've put a lot of rounds through it. I made a few modifications, as you can see, but I feel like I have a pretty good sense of how this gun shoots, how it handles, the reliability, the accuracy by now. I've really gotten a lot of use out of it, and there's a reason that I've held on to it all this time. So if you're interested in the M&P 2.0, I think that this competes with any of the modern offerings as far as polymer striker-fired guns that are currently on the market, including things that have come out in past very recent years. I think that this competes with them and maybe beats a lot of them. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed, and let's begin. As I said in the intro, I've owned this gun for a very long time, and I really like it. So spoiler alert for the video, this is a gun that I enjoy. There's a reason that I've kept it all this time, and I haven't sold it to get something new. I think that the M&P 2.0 is a really good amalgamation of features, reliability, and accuracy, and ergonomics. Honestly, out of all the striker-fired guns that I have ever spent time on, I think that this one has some of the best ergonomics. And ergonomics do matter. If the gun feels good in your hand, you're going to feel more confident with it. Now, that is not to say that you can't shoot something that isn't ergonomic pretty well. I don't think Glocks feel fantastic in my hand, but I can shoot them just fine. But I kind of feel like in a world where the M&P 2.0 exists, why would you buy a Glock? The Smith & Wesson M&P, I think, has some of the best grip texture of any pistol that I have ever shot. Besides that, it's just easy to reach all the controls, and when you put an apex trigger in it, this thing's pretty hard to beat. Quick word from this video's sponsor. I've been using Aura now for a couple of months. I know you guys have seen it in my videos if you've been watching, and it's a product and a service that I really actually believe in at this point. It has totally stopped me from getting spam calls. Now, data brokers are a real thing these days. Scammers, spammers, all this stuff. I've been trying to sell a pickup truck lately, and at first all I was getting was scammers. Well, Aura took care of that, and I'm not hearing from the scammers anymore. Unfortunately, I still haven't sold the truck, but I've got a lot of examples like that. In fact, the place where I work just recently got scammed and we lost out on a whole day's worth of revenue. Well, Aura can stop things like that from happening. They search the entire internet for anywhere where your information is being sold to people, and they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, which takes care of your information being out there. It clears you up, so that you stop getting spam calls, you stop getting scammers. There are people out there these days whose whole career is just scamming people out of their money by finding their information on the internet. And as sickening and as sad as that is, it's a reality. And for only $12 a month, you can stop them from being able to take advantage of you. If you use my link, which is the first link in the description, aura.com/sawtooth-tactical, you get to try it out free for 2 weeks. And then you can decide if it's something that you still want to stick with. But Aura is pretty confident that you'll stick with it, and that's why they give you that 2-week free trial. $12 a month after that is a really good deal for all of the different things that you get with Aura. I've been sticking with it for a few months. I'm really happy with it. I respect my privacy and I respect yours. Like Glock, Smith & Wesson has many models of the M&P 2.0. Now, 2.0 obviously says that there originally was a 1.0, and even that was a good pistol, although it had a terrible trigger and not nearly as good of texture stippling on the grip, and just didn't quite have all of the features that the 2.0 has. The 2.0 was a major upgrade from the 1.0, and in fact, now they even have an upgraded 2.0. They haven't called it the 3.0, but they've got an all metal frame version, and even the polymer ones now come with a better trigger than what this one did. This M&P 2.0, I got it a few years back now, and it came with that original hinged 2-piece trigger design, which was not very good. And so I did what every M&P 2.0 owner did at that time, and I installed an Apex trigger. And we will talk about that trigger as we get into this too, because while it is not a stock trigger, it has come to be something that is very standard that people do to upgrade their M&P 2.0s. And even with some of the guns that have come out, the Canics and the Walthers, that have really, really good stock triggers, I think that the Apex trigger that you can put in these M&P 2.0s is actually better. And I have used Canics and I have used Walthers, and their triggers are good, but this Apex is incredible. And so we'll do trigger pull gauge and all that in this video once we get up close. But first I want to talk about what this one is. This is the 4¼ inch. So it is technically a full size. They have a 4-inch compact with a 15 round capacity, Glock 19 size. This is closer to a Glock 17 size, 4¼ inch barrel, 17 round capacity. And then they even have 5-inch barrel ones. They've got competitor models with comps. They've got a lot of models of the M&P 2.0 these days. But this one it was their very basic full-size version. It did not come optics ready. That was something that I did to it, and we'll talk about that as well, because I think that milling your slide direct for an optic is a really good way to go with this platform, because then you don't have to change out your sights. But what is this gun? Like I said, it's a 4¼ inch full-size polymer framed striker fired pistol. But it's got some things about it that set it apart from some of the others. And the first thing to me is those ergonomics. The ergonomics on this gun are really, really good in my opinion. Now it comes with multiple back straps, so you can make it fit anybody's hands. But the grip texture on it is so good. It's a 9mm, but I was shooting 124 grain 9mm NATO today, which is a little hotter load. But it is so easy to keep a good hold on it with the grip texture on this M&P 2.0. This diagram right here shows that original hinged trigger I was talking about, which was not very good. It was very gritty, and the hinge itself did not feel good on my finger. But the newer ones actually come with more of a almost flat face trigger that is a lot smoother and breaks a lot cleaner. But let's talk about what this gun is. So it is polymer framed, but there is actually a steel insert in the frame that keeps it nice and rigid, so that when you mount something like a light on it, it's not going to affect the polymer frame. It can't squeeze it or cause any problems there. So it does have a full Picatinny rail, so you can mount your favorite lights, Surefire X300, Streamlight TLR-1 HL. I use these lights on just about everything because they're really, really good lights. And on a full-size gun, I think it works great. Now, this Cerakote did not come on it. It comes all black with Smith & Wesson's Armor Night finish is what they call it. And that's what's on the barrel as well. And that finish has held up extremely well. This thing has seen thousands of rounds. And as you can see, the only real wear on it is on the hood there. You're not really going to escape that after thousands of rounds. But when I talk about the ergonomics of this pistol, this is what I mean. With your regular firing grip, you can hit the mag release without changing up your grip, and it's a very positive mag release. Unlike Glocks, where I feel like when you push it, this kind of pushes into the other side of your hand, this one does not. You can hit your slide release very easily, although the slide release on this is very stiff. Now, the newer ones, it's not so bad. My brother has a 10mm version. The slide release is much easier to actuate, but the slide release on this M&P is still very stiff even after thousands of rounds. Now, what else do I love about this pistol? Well, for some reason it soaks up recoil really well. Now, I recently watched a classic firearms video where they said it felt like shooting a .22. It does not feel that way, but it does soak up recoil, I feel like, better than a lot of other 9mm pistols, even full-size 9mm pistols. This thing is pretty easy to keep flat and keep on target. And it's easy to tell that when you're using a red dot because the dot doesn't hardly leave the window at all. Now you can see that this dot is very dirty after today's shooting, and that's because it does have a loaded chamber, hole that you can see there. And that does spout out gases where my red dot is. And the dot is mounted fairly far forward because I didn't want to move my iron sights. And in fact, using this Holosun EPS specifically, which has a very low deck height, and direct milling it to the slide, one of the benefits of that is that I can still use my iron sights and co-witness them without having to replace them with suppressor height sights. But that also meant that I had to mount it pretty far forward, and it does get dirty. One of the great things about the M&P 2.0 is its ease of teardown. So lock the slide back, lever, pull the trigger, and it comes right off. And in fact, you don't even have to pull the trigger. There's a little tool in the back strap here, and you can use that to push your little sear engagement lever here if you aren't comfortable pulling the trigger to take down your gun. But now you can see the way that the trigger system works here and why it feels so good with the Apex trigger. For one, you put a new striker block in, which is really smooth because that is part of what affects your trigger pull. This has to actuate that striker block. But for two, it's just a straight pull, and then you see that? That is the sear right there. And so your striker is caught on that, and that is why this trigger pull is so good, because that's all it takes. Now, let's put it back together and see what this Apex trigger pulls at. £2.4 pounds. Let's do it again just to be sure. $2.8. I felt like I was pulling that one a little harder. Let's do one more. 2.4. So it generally is pretty consistent at 2.4 pounds and just so smooth on the take up and so crisp. And I know that that is not the trigger that comes stock in these, but it's a really easy upgrade. It's not super expensive, and it makes it have, in my opinion, the best striker fired trigger on the market. Besides that, it's got great slide serrations, although the front slide serrations on this are not fantastic, but that again, that is something that they have upgraded recently. The newer ones have slide serrations that go all the way to the top, so that has been remedied. Other than that, it's just a pistol that feels really good in your hand. And to me, that is worth a lot. Plus, I think it looks really good. Now here with the Core Essentials battle belt on today. I did a review of this about a year ago, but I absolutely love this thing. And I have it set up for my M&P because it's pretty much my go-to pistol. I really trust this thing. And so that's what I keep my battle belt set up for. So how does the M&P 2.0 shoot? Well, I feel very confident with this gun. And in fact, today, my optic actually came loose because when I got this Holosun EPS, it didn't come with the correct screws for the milling that I had done to my slide. And so I got some screws at the hardware store. And even though Holosun sent me some free screws to fix that, I had never installed them. And of course, the one from the hardware store didn't have Loctite on it because I was waiting for the right screws. And so my optic came loose. And I still feel like I shot pretty well today. I had some misses when I stepped it back a little bit. But even with a loose optic, I did all right. But this gun, it feels really good to me, especially with the added weight of a light up front. Although, like I said, in that classic firearms video recently, they were claiming that it feels like shooting a 22. It doesn't feel like shooting a 22. It feels like shooting a 9mm, but it's a very controllable 9mm. Does it feel as soft shooting as like a 2011 as the Springfield Prodigy? Absolutely not. But it is more soft shooting than a Glock or a Glock clone or a P365 or a lot of other polymer striker fired pistols. I think that this thing shoots really well and it makes most people feel very good about their abilities. It's also very accurate and it's very reliable. I've put more rounds through this than any other handgun that I've ever owned. And I've only ever had one malfunction, and it was right after I installed the Apex trigger. I did have the slide like lock closed on a round when I was out shooting one time. This was a couple years ago, but I do still remember it. And I had a really hard time getting the slide to open up out of battery so I could clear that used or the spent brass in there. It was a really weird thing because it's the only malfunction I've ever had with this gun in, I've lost count, many thousands of rounds. And it might have had something to do with my installation of an aftermarket trigger. So I'm not really going to fault Smith & Wesson for that. A lot of people have had a lot of experience with this gun. It's been around for a long time and it is well known to be as reliable as Glock, which Glock is known for reliability. And in fact, Garand has done videos where this gun worked frozen in the mud better than Glock. And I'm not trying to shit on Glock here. I love Glocks. But my point is that Glocks are known for reliability, and this has been known to be just as reliable, just as accurate, but in my opinion, with much better ergonomics. And it just feels to me like a more shootable platform. It doesn't feel like you're gripping a 2x4 so much. Not only is the M&P one of my favorite pistols, but this Holosun EPS is quickly becoming my favorite pistol optic. It's an enclosed optic, but it has a window like an open emitter optic. It's huge, and I absolutely love it. Let's see if we can make some hits from a little farther away. Not bad. The new M&P 2.0s, they do come optics ready. They have their core system, which is Smith & Wesson's optics ready, modular optics system. I'm not sure I recommend that though. One of the reasons that I'm really happy with the optics setup on this gun is because I was able to mill it into a non-optics ready slide, put a Holosun EPS, which I'm a big fan of this optic. Enclosed emitter. So, everybody's all about enclosed emitters these days. You have nothing can get in there and block your emitter. But it still has just as big a window as an open emitter optic, so it doesn't look like you're looking through a tube like some closed emitter optics on the market do. And it also has an extremely low deck height. So if you do direct mill this and you don't have to use a plate system, you can get your optic nice and low. And I think that it is about the perfect optic setup for this pistol. Now I got really lucky with that. When I originally did it, it was the first pistol optic that I'd ever gotten. And I kind of cheaped out and I had it cut for a Holosun 407K because I felt like that was the cheapest quality optic on the market. Funny thing was, the K optic was not really the appropriate size for a full-size pistol. So that ended up going on my P365 XL build there. Luckily, when the Holosun EPS came out a couple years later, it uses the K footprint, and so I was able to direct mount the EPS full size on my already milled Holosun K footprint. Kind of worked out really well, and I'm extremely happy with it. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments of the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. You know, with like the Walther PDP, with, I'm not going to go through the whole list. There's a lot of newer guns on the market that people are really into and rave about these days. And of course, everybody still loves Glock, as do I, and the Walther PDP. I haven't shot one, but I've had my hands on one. They feel fantastic. But I've heard that they're pretty snappy, and this is not a snappy gun. And I feel like it has as good or better ergonomics, reliability, accuracy, shootability as anything on the market these days, but it's not very expensive. And for some reason, you just don't hear about them as much. And I think that this is a really, really good gun. I think that just about anybody would be very well served, very well armed with an M&P 2.0. Whether you get, a compact one or a Shield Plus to carry or a full size like this, they're all very reliable, very shootable pistols. But let me know down in the comments if you have experience with the M&P 9 M2.0 and what your experience is. Do you enjoy this pistol or do you disagree with me? Because I really, really think it's a great gun, and I've put thousands of rounds through it by now. Like, I have no idea how many thousands. The only gun I've ever really counted, round counts on was this one. And I've even lost count of that by now. But I did count the first, 1,300 rounds or so. I just don't really do that. But I've shot this gun a ton. I've had it for years. I've done a number of videos on it. But I feel like at this point, I'm definitely at a point where I can, give it a real review. And I don't really have a whole lot negative to say about this gun. Now, yes, the hinge trigger that they used to come with was not very good. But they don't even come with that trigger anymore. And if you do have one with that trigger, do the Apex trigger install. I mean, this is better than some 1911 triggers. This Apex trigger is fantastic. And honestly, even with their new trigger, which I have used and shot, I would still upgrade it to an Apex. The new trigger is a big improvement on the original hinge trigger, but it's not nearly as smooth as this at the take-up, and the break is not as crisp. It's a good trigger, but it's not Apex good. So I do really highly recommend the Apex trigger. Other than that, light and optic, and you've got a fantastic setup here. Maybe it's just because of my hand size or something, but this gun just works great for me. It's the only pistol I've ever owned that really I can be shooting and drop the mag without having to change up my grip at all. And I think that's a positive thing. But like I said, I want to know what you guys think. If you want to support the channel, join Aura. 2 weeks free with my link, $12 a month after that. I don't get spam calls anymore. That's the biggest thing it's done for me, but I also haven't been getting scammers, so that's pretty sweet too. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.